All right. This is Free the People. And tonight is Wednesday, the first Wednesday of August, which is what, 3rd? First, second, third, 4th. Okay, 4th. August 4th. Hey, Chris.
Well, hello all.
What's new?
We have some non-resident aliens back in the state of Alaska. Back on the state of Alaska.
Yep, we're upon the land and soil.
Yay!
Yay!
And left no flesh anywhere, I guess.
Not that I know of. No. And we've made some new friends right around the border. I think they experienced a pretty good show. Maybe something that'll make a lasting impression.
Gave them a lesson, eh? Excellent.
Oh, yeah. No, I said something that'll make a lasting impression, but yeah, we tried for it to be educational. Yeah, definitely, for sure. So.
Yeah, looking forward to hearing about it here.
Yeah. Well, what we can do, I just want to first start out and just explain, because we've done a series of these shows on passports and how you apply for your passport and the different ideas out there. And if people have been tuning in to hear about this, they know that Bill and I had different approaches as to how we were going to go about getting back home. And his approach was that he did want to make an application to the U.S. Department of State and obtain a passport card. And I wanted to go to the border and see what I could do without really much of anything other than my usual declarations, my stuff I've got, and just talk to people and get through. And so he did apply for a passport card, and we went back and forth with something called the Charleston Passport Center, and that's in Arlington, Virginia, or Sterling, Virginia. And but the bottom line is basically we passed through Canada and back into Alaska without any passport, any state ID, and it was in it. Any what?
Current state ID.
Any current state ID, and it was in a private automobile that doesn't have a registration, and we also don't have driving licenses. So that's the bottom line.
So what kind of documentation did y'all end up using?
Well, the two different borders were different. And at the Canadian border, we rolled up and the guy said, "How can I help you?" And Bill said, "Just traveling home to Alaska." And he said, "Can I see your passport?" And we just shook our heads. No. How about a driver's license? No. What do you have? And so we got to the point where we both carry a notebook that has all kinds of different stuff, evidences. So we've created superior evidence. One of the things that we have is our declarations. We have copies of birth certificates. We have the witness statements that actually the passport issuing agency will ask people for witness statements, affidavits by people you know. And we have our Sam's Club card, or a Costco card. Bill has an expired driver's license from Alaska and an expired electrician's license. So they're expired, but somehow those things are comforting to these guys. So we did, we showed our birth certificates, and then the guy at the Canadian border was really, really interested in whether or not you need a driver's license to drive in Alaska. So he wasn't sure. He thought Americans needed driver's license in order to drive. And so we had a discussion about that, where you get into contracts and commerce and driving versus traveling. You're traveling in your private automobile on the public ways and all that kind of stuff. So that was part of the discussion at the Canadian border. And then the other part of the discussion was land law and English common law. He basically was trying to convince us there are no contracts and they're not in the commercial jurisdiction. But when I brought up English common law, and I was saying, this is Canada. You guys are supposed to be under English common law, and we're supposed to be under American common law. And he really didn't have much of a comment about that. But he seemed pretty well placated by the birth certificate and just the discussion we were having on all of these things, and just that we could show our witness witness statements and our Sam's Club cards. And that he basically, after all the discussion, he did ask if this was a man on the land kind of a thing, and he was referring to Dean Clifford, man on the land, and I said, no, it's just English. It's just common law. You guys are supposed to be under English common law, and we're supposed to be under American common law. And it's very, very simple, and what that means is as long as we don't cause any harm, it's not a problem. So, do unto others as you would have them do to you. Basically, copies of birth certificates and something that links your picture with the name that's on the birth certificate.
What did your declaration say? If you have it there, could you read it out there?
Oh, it's just my foundational declaration. I didn't bring my declaration with me tonight, but my foundational declaration is really just all the simple, basic stuff that I know for sure about myself. And you could make this from, I was born to these two people on the land and soil of such and such a state. My proper lawful address is blah. I'm married to this person. Just basic self-descriptive information. You can start talking about how you operate with it. You're a Christ follower, or however you identify, who you're following, what jurisdiction you're claiming, and so we claim land jurisdiction. That's just my basic foundational declaration that's I filed on the land record in Alaska in 2016. Something akin to that would be the Audubon rights stuff from Article number 928. And it's basically saying, yeah, we've expatriated the United States. We're not citizens. We're nationals. We're nationals. We're Alaskans, and just Alaskans only. Because what they'll default to is you have to show you're a citizen of the United States. Well, no, you don't. You have to show you were born on one of the states. And if you choose to identify as a national that was born on the land and soil of Michigan or on the land and soil of Texas or whatever, that's how you identify. So when you're asked to identify yourself, do it the way you think of yourself, not the way you expect somebody else expects you to think. So what we said was we're nationals. We are, and going into the Alaska side, we said we're lawfully excused because we're not subject. So you've got the old, maxim of law, the common law maxim. Ignorance of the law is no excuse. Well, that tells you there is an excuse that's lawful. Knowledge of the law allows you to be lawfully excused. You're just excused. And you're excused from all the statutes and codes unless you've agreed, you've entered in contract and you've agreed to be subject. So the supervisor there headed into Alaska didn't like that. In fact, he said he had never heard it. He asked all the guys that were standing around if they had ever heard it, and of course they had never heard it. So we had a pretty good discussion there as well. So, it was more difficult to get back into Alaska than it was to go through Canada. In fact, when we went through the Canadian border, we had the little bit of a discussion. I would say we were there a total of maybe 5 or 6 minutes. And he noticed that we had a dog, and he said, okay, so it's just the two of you and the dog. And then he never asked to see the dog's papers. I mean, we had enough of a discussion that he just wanted us off his doorstep, I think. And we didn't go into the building, so.
I'm surprised, normal in the past, they would have probably asked for citizenship papers for him. You guys got papers?
Citizenship for the dog?
For the dog. It's just as ridiculous, as this has gotten almost to the point.
Oh, yeah, it's nutty. That's
we're conducting a study for the Matsu Health Foundation to better understand health issues affecting households in the...
Okay, here we go. We got it.
That was
okay. Okay, that wasn't us. That was one of our listeners. So, so anyway, any other questions come to mind, and we can find out if anybody's got questions up until this point, up through the Canadian border.
How big a crossing was that, Maria?
Oh, it only had, going up from Sandpoint, Idaho, you can go up, and there's actually 2 that are pretty close together. But this particular one that we went was just like a 2 or 3 lane crossing, and only one lane was open. And no waiting.
Did you know if they had that speed pass lane? Well, I mean, they usually identify that card. If you carry the card, that you can get through there a little bit quicker. like the Mexico
I
border?
didn't notice. I didn't notice. Is that if you have the passport card, you just blip through?
Yeah, down in Mexico, they actually have a lane for that, and it's just come through and wave the card and go through. I've not been through it since I've received mine, since I got my national passport, but I'm just kind of curious to see if Canada had the same. I didn't remember it.
I thought I remembered seeing something about a speed pass, but I don't remember the particulars, if it was one particular lane or what. But it does seem like I remember seeing that. But of course, that wouldn't affect us because we didn't have the freaking speed pass.
Yeah, so it's kind of at this point, it might be valuable to tell you what the process has been with the Charleston Passport Center. The Bill had the initial application that, if you recall, he went down to the county and filed it on demand because he knew he was filing with documentation that isn't standard. So he filed it on demand, and they expedited it for him. He paid an extra certain amount of money, $60 or something, to have it expedited so that we could travel home. So then several weeks later, they wrote back and said, we need valid ID. We need these kinds of identification papers. Please send back your state-issued driver's license or these kinds of things. And so he took that letter and he responded to it on a yellow legal pad, written in blue ink, and written in longhand, and said, as I no longer wish to, enter into contracts such as these listed in your letter, please find enclosed my 3 witness statements. And he put copies of his witness statements that were notarized by a public notary by people who knew that he was the man attached to the birth certificate which he had sent earlier. So then a couple weeks later, I guess, or so, they sent back something that said, oh, okay, well, then send in, since you don't have these, state-issued ID that's a current valid license, then you need to send us 5 copies of different things proving that, basically proving to us who you are.
5 years old or 4 old.
That are 5 years old or older. And so he went through some of his stuff, and he found his name in his high school reference book, and he found report cards, and he found all kinds of things. He found a couple of newspaper articles. We talked about that, I think, last week or the week before, where it was when he was a little kid, 1969. He was in the newspaper, and it had the very same address that he was using to correspond with the Charleston Passport Center. So it was much more than 5 years old or older. And he sent in a bunch of exhibits, more than 5, up to the letter Q in the alphabet. And so that was just before we were leaving. And so we were kind of interested. We had gotten back 3 days ago, and we were kind of interested to find out what was going on. So we called down to find out if anything had come from the Charleston Passport Center today. And he had somebody open the letter and read it, and they've basically gone back to the first letter again. So please send us valid ID. So we thought that was kind of interesting. They're going around in circles. And so I think that basis for writing to the head of that agency, head of the State Department, and saying, look at these, look at what your minions are doing. This is ridiculous. So they, anyway. So that's where it's at. There's no passport card forthcoming, even though they said, oh, okay, well, all right, so if you don't have state-issued ID, then you can send, old newspaper articles. You can send something that establishes that you were in the country, 5 years ago or more. And then when they got that, I guess I don't know what happened, but so we're gonna have to write. We're just gonna keep on this and write letters and show them, the kind of the folly that's going on. And then the other thing I thought would be interested too. Oh, yeah, we talked about this last week. The records with a photograph, either valid or expired. Okay, so let me go back a minute. This is the second letter. And it's got the categories, and I think Bill went into this. But after we said we're no longer entering into contracts such as these, they gave him the option of submitting photocopies of 5 or more personal documents which are 5 years old or older. So at this point, they list an expired driver's license is okay. A school yearbook photograph with your name and photo, also the school's name and the year it was issued, either a valid or expired passport, newspaper and magazine articles with your photo and name, newspaper's name and date, and then the next category is records with either photograph or signature, and then they go on and on from there. So anyway, so they came back with this counter offer basically, and then when you meet that counter offer and say, okay, I accept your counter offer and I'm going to provide these things, then some strange reason that they didn't just go ahead and issue the passport card. But,
Just fall back to their old standard.
Well, it's just weird. They've got this form letter, They've got the form letter making this offer. Okay, if you don't have a valid state-issued ID, so strange.
Was there a direct name that was attached to it that you could reference or contact?
No.
I'm sure there wasn't, but Bill says no. It's just customer service agent, general customer service agent. And he's just writing to, they do give a reference number. So once you have created the application, you do have a reference number so they can pull up everything that's come. So this, I just think it warrants a letter to the head of the State Department. And just to point out just general incompetence. And I think if they don't, if the idea is that we're showing that he was born on one of the states. He's an American. He's an American statesman. And that's really all the State Department is saying is, yeah, this is one of our American statesmen. So, if they can't do that, I think...
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
So, out of how many people you said were approximately 5 people there at the Canadian? Nobody had heard any of this, pretty much. Okay,
so that was I probably got it a little bit muddled. There were 5 people standing around at the American border to come back into Alaska. So at the Canadian, we only dealt with one guy, and he was really intelligent. He made the decision. Basically, he decided if he could trust us or not. And he decided he could, just based on our conversation. So then they have this thing, you have to promise you don't have any of the prohibited stuff. We didn't have any of the prohibited stuff, so it wasn't a big deal. But then at the border back into Alaska, it was the same basic deal. Can I see your passport? No. Okay, do you have a driver's license? No. You don't have a driver's license? No. What do you have? We had witness statements, and we had a power bill from Delta, and we basically said the same thing. We're traveling home to Delta. We're Alaskans, and we're traveling home to Delta. And we're lawfully excused. We're not subject. Okay, you're going to have to come inside. So coming back into our home, country, we had to get out of the car and go inside. They also wanted to know if we had produce from Canada that we had purchased in Canada. We didn't. We thought we did, but we didn't. And they wanted to, one guy came up and pulled on the door handle of your truck, Chris. And I said, "Are you trying to get in there?" In other words, what do you think you're doing? You can't just get in the truck. And luckily it was locked and he couldn't get in. And once I had called him on it, he didn't try to get in again. So the guy who was trying to get in the truck said he had heard of common law and that didn't apply, because there was one flaw in our logic, and that was that we were on the public roadways. And I said, that's right, they are public. And I'm the public. And every time we fill up with a gallon of gas, we're paying for these roadways. Those are ours to use. Those are the public ways. And that being on the public ways does not obligate me to enter into a contract with anybody for any reason. I don't have to be in a contract. I don't have to have a license to be able to travel, and he had no response. So when you're that confident and you know that you know that you know and you're right, and they have no response, they will never acknowledge that you're winning, but you feel it. Their attitude changes, and you do win. But it's a conversation. I mean, it's dealing with, your brothers and sisters. No matter how, indoctrinated or misguided or mistrained they are. So, yeah. So we went through that. We had the power bill from Delta. We had our witness statements, and the supervisor was in on it once we got inside, and he said that anybody can take a witness statement. I said, we took these. We had them notarized. It's a public notary in Utah. The witnesses were his mother, his father, and his sister, showing a picture of Bill on these witness statements. And you can see the notary public stamp. And he said, it's not a raised stamp. Anybody can go down to Office Max and buy a stamp. At which point I said, are you accusing me of counterfeiting? And he said, no. I said, yeah, you are. Yes, you are accusing me of that, because if I went down into Office Max and got a stamp, I wouldn't be standing here telling you we had that notarized at a public notary. So which is it? So he backed off on that one. I think it's just, And I didn't say, hey, look, the passport agency asked for these things. Here's the form. And I had a copy of the form. This is what the passport agency uses, is these witness statements if you don't choose to have a driver's license or a state-issued ID. They ask you to provide witness truth in the form of an affidavit, witness statement. And I could have shown him that, but I didn't. I didn't do that. I was busy. I was busy thinking and talking and all kinds of stuff. So anyway.
Yeah, I'm keeping on going 1,000 miles an hour, just trying to counter anything to come up with.
Yeah, and you're arguing with 5 people at the same time. And the comical thing is, we're not going to argue with you, ma'am. And it's like, wait a minute, we passed that point a long time ago. When you brought me in here, you are going to listen to how we're operating. I didn't start this. And I said, I've accepted your oath of office. Because that letter to Trump is, I'm accepting your oath of office and the oath of office of every officer under you, your auspices. So I've got a contract with any one of their officers that crosses my path. I explained that to him. We have an agreement. And then we talked about Sheriff Mack and Prince, and that you guys have the option anytime to uphold the organic public law, your oath of office. So one of them tried to write it down, and he said, hey, could you write that down for me, because I'm going to look it up. Sheriff Mack it's just Mack and Prince versus United States. And so he actually was checking on his computer, and he was going to look up that Mack and Prince decision, because he hadn't been told by the lawyers that trained him that he had the option anytime he's on duty to uphold his oath of office. They don't know that. Anybody working for the corporation, that is such a huge case. That is such a huge win. Anybody working for the corporation in their capacity as officer can uphold at any time, the common law, which is their oath of office, which is, law of the land, the supreme law of the land. So,
and that's from the president all the way down to a dog catcher.
Oh yeah, and the one I'm really super interested in is the notary public. So if you go into become a notary public, okay, and that's a corporate office. And you know that Mack and Prince versus United States allows you to be a public notary, because you can uphold the organic and public law at any time you're practicing as a notary public. So when people come to you, you can be a public notary. You can be a land jurisdiction public notary, even though you've been trained and signed, sealed, delivered by the corporation. So what that means is we can have land jurisdiction notarizing of all of our documents. To me, that's huge, because the public notary is an officer of the court. It just takes a while to get the implication. So if you have questions about why that's so big, I just think it's huge.
We need to probably find some that are local to each of us and work on them as kind of, and once we find one or two that understands and can comprehend what we're telling them, that way we can recommend them out even.
Well, sure, you can do that, or any of us can become public notaries by going through the notary public training.
And yeah, it probably wouldn't hurt for several of the assemblymen to do that, actually.
No, yeah, there needs to be at least one in every county. Every county to me, that's like the most simple but most powerful thing we can do is get public notaries going. And what we did with our witness statements, we wrote them. I man declare. So let's just say it was his sister. I, woman, Jill Rensel, declare. Okay. such and such and so, and then down at the bottom where the notary public signs their name, it was written public notary. And the notary publics from the commercial side didn't notice that it was said public notary, or they didn't object. So silence is consent. Right? So when they notarized those, they did it as public notaries. That's land jurisdiction. That makes sense? It does. They didn't object, so they consented. So any document you take before a notary, even though it's corporate, give them the opportunity to object to being a public notary. You know, it's kind of in everything is the kernel of its undoing. And so we just go forward and be confident and just keep going forward with this in all the small ways and reverse it. Neither one of the border patrols remembered to check our dog's paperwork. By the time they were done with us, they didn't care about the dog. Just get out of here.
I bet.
The one coming into Alaska started packing up our paperwork. Okay, I'm done. And he starts packing up all of our stuff and handing it back to us. And I'm like, wait, I just wanted to show you one more thing. So it was very thrilling to get into Canada. We were a little concerned. We went to the border. We prayed. We asked people to be praying for us, and it happened, and we were just thrilled. That heading into Canada was wonderful. It just feels like, okay, when you're doing the right thing and you're doing it for the right reasons, and it goes well, you just are just praising the glory of God. It's just, He's right there with you, and it's working because it's the law.
Amen to that.
Yeah. So it's just great. Makes the entire trip all the more, just even more sweet than it was. Just excellent. So anyway, that's our story, and we're sticking to it.
Yeah, that's excellent.
Yeah.
How many days did y'all travel?
What's that?
How many days did y'all travel through?
Let's see, 6. Yeah, 6 from the Canadian border. Yeah. It was about a 9-day trip altogether, but once we hit Canada, it was 6. Yeah, so
6 days from the South Canadian border to the North Canadian border? Or 4 days?
Yeah, 6 days home from the border at Idaho. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so the northern border had... Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh, from Sand Point to Beaver Creek.
Beaver Creek, I heard.
Yeah,
okay.
That was great. Glenn was...
Okay, go ahead, Glenn.
So the northern border had a heads up that you were headed their way.
Didn't seem like it, no.
Not at all?
Not at all. It didn't seem like it at all. No.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, Angela Stark is going to want to interview you on this whole story and
okay.
others.
That'd be good, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, there's going to be a whole lot of people that are going to want to hear about this.
Yeah, that's what we're thinking, and we'll put this on YouTube, and that way we don't have to repeat ourselves too often.
Right.
and send out the links and stuff like that. I mean, it's fine. We can answer questions and, you know, tell whoever. But yeah, I think that'd be great. I think people do need to hear this.
Hey, Maria, the pirates are on the run here in our little town.
Oh, good. That's really nice to hear from you.
That's wonderful.
Well, that's just a fact. I mean, they're nowhere to be found. They're not in their usual hiding places. They're still picking up some DUIs. But you know, the courthouse parking lot is empty except for the two parasites.
That sounds about right. That's good.
Where are you located at, Glenn?
Delta.
Beautiful.
Now if we can just empty out the courthouse parking lot at Fairbanks.
Amen.
Yeah.
There's a whole lot of bonding and whatnot going on there. Rating of the trust is still large.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of money going through there.
Well, there's a lot to be said about the small towns like Delta, Nenana, maybe Talkeetna, and you know, leave the bigger villages for later.
Yeah, we just saw, let's see, two of the SS troopers and one of the local, I don't know if it was a VPSOA, as we rolled here into Nenana about 45 minutes ago. Looked like they were running down into town after something.
And what happened again, Chris?
It looked like there were a couple of troopers, and I couldn't tell if it was a VPSOA, you know, the village protection officers, whatever they're calling these guys now, and or one of the local guys. I don't think there's any local police here in Nenana. I think it's pretty much covered by VPSOA. But they've taken off there into the main section of town as we were pulling in, kind of like they were in hot pursuit of something or other.
Yeah. I think you have a trooper post there.
Yeah, I think so.
Anyway, we're doing it in a small town here, but it can be done in any place.
Maria, can you hear me?
I can hear you, John, yeah.
Did you always interject your religious beliefs, for example, God or Jesus or Christian or anything like that? Did you always interject that into the conversation?
I remember that during the coming back into Alaska, and you know, I tried to give you the whole thing as best as I could, but now you reminded me. At one point, standing at the counter coming back into Alaska, Bill pulled out his expired electrician's card, and the supervisor there started to jump on his case for not showing that in the first place. Why didn't you show me your state-issued ID in the first place? And he was trying to act like Bill was had done something wrong. And so I said, wait a minute. You're discriminating against us because we don't have contracts. We don't have valid current driver's license or contracts with the state. That's discrimination. And he said, I'm not discriminating. I said, you're discriminating based against us. And these are our closely held religious beliefs. And I should have said spiritual beliefs, that we should not be in these contracts with the state because these are yeah, I didn't say any of this, but I said that we have to end all the contracts, all of our contracts with the United States. We believe that. That's our, these are our, I didn't say rights of conscience, but I could have. These are our closely held religious beliefs, and you're discriminating because we don't choose to identify that way. And we tried to show you our witness statements first, but you wouldn't accept them. You acted like we were, you told us we were possibly submitting fraudulent counterfeit documents. So that's discrimination. So that is how I brought in on that conversation. In Canada, I just talked about land law. As long as we do no harm and treat our neighbor as ourselves, the state can't compel us to do anything.
Right.
So that wasn't like, I didn't hit Jesus and religion, but I could have.
Sure. And that's all they can ask for is some sort of state license. They are not authorized to go beyond that. And that's all they know.
Well, and it's kind of interesting, going back to something I saw David Straight talking about. He suggests that we have some basic documents that allows these people at the border to protect the borders. So some basic documentation where you've made your declarations far beforehand. You've declared that you follow the land law, and that's what you're coming under. You let them know you're lawfully excused because you're not subject. And whether they've heard it or not, sorry, but their ignorance of the law is no excuse. It doesn't excuse them from knowing. So,
right.
But you should have some basic documentation. Go ahead.
Go ahead. Well, like a standard notice of intent to travel through your country, and give them a 30-day notice and make it a standard thing. And then when they get that in the mail, they just put your name on the list of people to let through, and make it a standard form letter, a notice and demand.
Mm-hmm.
And make that a precedent. And then any of us who want to go through there, we just mail in this form from our state. When we get around to forming a state, it'll be from our state, and they'll just let us through, because they'll have 30 days to do their checking and verifying.
Yeah, and I've seen people who go under land law just mail a letter to the Secretary of State. I've seen that happen.
Yeah.
Yep. I'm coming through your territory, and I just wanted to let you know. And even just having the mailing proof of that to give to whatever officer you encounter. It helps because you've done some pre-planning. Sorry?
Yeah, give them a 30-day notice, and then like a 7-day notice, and then call them when you get near the border. I'm headed through. You better have your act together, because I'm charging by the minute. If you're going to use my property, if you're going to use my body and my name and my car to get your little weekly paycheck, I'm going to have my cut, and here's the rate. So get ready. Yeah, something like that. I'd be a little nicer about it. But and then we would have the responsibility not to let let criminals through using our system. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because we do want to.
Yeah, right. Exactly. We're not opening the floodgates to Africa like Europe did. Anyway.
Yeah, we don't want to be lawless, and we don't want to not have. Well, it
right.
It depends on your conscience what you want, but
well,
generally,
we want them to do their job, but don't interfere with us doing our job. They got to do their job, but don't interfere with us traveling back and forth to do our jobs.
Yeah, and in our case, we didn't give any advance notice. We were just.
Yeah. You just set a big precedent for a lot of future stuff here.
Well, and it feels to me the same way as when I went through TSA and used my Sam's Club card. And
same thing, same exact thing.
Yeah, and people laugh at me when I say I just talk to people. When which guru is right? Well, none of them are right for you. They're right, maybe they're right for themselves, but you're here because you're a unique, unrepeatable being. You're going to use your creativity, your brain power to make it through the world.
Right.
So the more different ways that we do these things, it seems to me the more we strengthen our cause.
Yeah, you have to be your own guru before you can be a guru for other people.
Yeah. I mean, encourage other people to stand on their own 2 feet, not on yours. I mean,
Yeah,
you can't.
That's really happening a lot. That's happening.
Good.
A lot. And the TSA thing can be done with the same 30-day form thing. And then there shouldn't be any problem. You shouldn't have to, jump through the squirrel cage there either.
Yeah, the way I did it was I did go down to the Fairbanks airport and talk to the head of TSA, and I got his business card. And he said, yeah, it's no problem. All you do is, you show your ticket, your boarding pass, and a picture ID. And they have all sorts of alternatives and all sorts of options like your power bill and your Sam's Club card, and just it's on the TSA website. But having his business card gave me the ability to say, well, 30 days ago I talked to Ricardo, and he said that all I had to do was show you, this and that, and just having his business card and knowing I talked to him made an impact. And then now I went on a flight. I went to see to Mountain View, California, and I actually went and toured Google because my son works for Google. And I got a Google Visitors Pass, so I put that in with all of my identifying information, too. It's just a little paper pass that says Maria Renzel on it, and it says Google. And it's just this flimsy little visitor pass for having gone through there. So I stuck that in there, and when I went through San Francisco, I said, I want the 1-in-1. And the guy at the supervisor at the gate says, you're not getting in here if you don't have a state-issued ID, ma'am. And I said, you might want to go talk to your supervisor. So he did, and he came back, and he says, okay, now here's how it's going to be. Well, I got the 1-in-1, and that's just it's just the TSA's code for how you, if somebody doesn't have all this crap they tell you must have, then they search your property that you have with you. So if you have a carry-on, they'll search through your carry-on, and then they'll also do a pat-down, and that's a 1-in-1. So you know, I'll take the 1-in-1. I'm not going to be browbeaten into getting a driver's license and selling my soul. Thank you very much.
Well, 1-in-1, did you get to pat them down too on this 1-in-1?
No, thank you. But yeah, you know
what kind of deal is that?
There's a better remedy now. There is remedy for this, because what TSA.gov has on their website is a claim form. So then you do the 1-in-1 under duress. Yeah, I'll do the 1-in-1, but it's under duress. Because you let me go. Okay, so you do it under duress, and then you file a claim against them. You just
They put their property on your property, and that's an interference with your use of your property.
Well, they had no probable cause. They had no probable cause.
It doesn't matter. Probable cause doesn't even come into it. They're not the people that are supposed to have probable cause. Those people went to sleep 150 years ago. The probable cause doesn't mean anything.
Well, TSA probably doesn't. It doesn't come into play.
Right. In other words, even if they did have probable cause, you know, they don't even, you know, we can go down the list. Where's their green card? Where's their Coast Guard issued medical certificate? Where's their blah, blah, blah? The problem is, if you know, the thief that tries to break into your thing, you know, we don't ask them what their probable cause is because they don't have any.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's I'm figuring that stuff out. They're not the ones that we need to respond to any probable cause about.
Well, okay, so you have what I did that first time was I had a TSA printed out claim form, and when I finished the 1-in-1 under duress, then I got the highest person that was in the TSA at the airport at that time to come over and talk to me, and I wrote down her name, and I got her business card, and then I sent that in to TSA with my claim that they searched me and it violated my common law rights.
Mm-hmm.
Now there's been I still am sitting on a letter that came from their chief counsel at the it's unopened. It's a letter. It's got his name on it, and I keep thinking about what I want to write to him and say. So
well, what if you sent him a bill for the use of your property for his own enrichment?
Well, that was my claim, $5,000 per occurrence, and it was 4 times, so they owe me $20,000.
Oh, okay, yeah.
That's
right.
That's basically, but I got a letter back, and I couldn't open it because it wasn't addressed to me.
Right. So send him so you would send him an actual bill for the $20,000, and with a notice of a late fee, and it's due in 30 days or whatever, and then a second notice of the bill.
Final, just like the process. Yeah.
Yep. Past due, just like any other, you know, business or company.
Yep.
Send in those bills. You know, I did that around this town, and they don't even want to talk to me. And it's up around 16 million or something, but yeah.
Well, here in Fairbanks, the parking authority.
I am high maintenance, man. I'm a high maintenance national. Yeah, so they're already bankrupt. But yeah, go ahead, Chris.
Oh yeah, I did the same thing with the parking authority here, and of course they didn't know how to respond, didn't do any kind of response, and so I gave them their steps. But one thing I've noticed was at first after 2 of these bills going to them, they anytime they saw my luxury transport, they would not touch the tires because that's the way they were coming through town, and they were marking on people's private property. Okay, well, this car's here, this car's here, this car's here, whatever. since then, they've changed their policy. They are no longer marking on the vehicles as of just, I think, the last month or so.
Huh.
But
Cool.
they still have not responded to the fact that they're past due on 2 bills.